Greetings, discreet defenders. Today we are going to disassemble and clean the GX4. Now we just got back from the range, so the gun is still fairly dirty from putting 100 rounds through it. We want to properly clean and care for the firearm so that hopefully it continues to function reliably and maybe even improves, turn that 99% into 100%. So I've got the manual open to the care and maintenance page, and indeed it says basically the first step is to disassemble it. So we start back here on page 24 and figure out how to do that. All right, finger off the trigger, muzzle in a safe direction, remove the magazine, clear the chamber, look in there, feel in there, confirm that it's absolutely clear of any ammunition. And look for the takedown pin on the right side of the pistol. There's our takedown pin on the right side of the pistol. Looks like it's going to require a screwdriver. Now I should probably have a nice fancy brass screwdriver of some sort, and with a gun like this I may actually do that, but all right, for the moment I'm just going to be really careful and use one that I already have. So using a flathead screwdriver, rotate the takedown pin a quarter turn counterclockwise to unlock the slide from the grip. Yeah, I'm meeting resistance right there. Kind of wants to snap back into place. A quarter turn. Pull the trigger, and the trigger's not pulling. So let's try it like this. Oh, there. Okay. Lesson learned. Notice how that came loose. Aha! Came further loose. All right. It definitely stays in the quarter turn position with the slide closed. I don't see that in the instructions, but okay. Apparently the slide needs to be closed. Now it works. All right. Next step. Pointing, done the next step already. Okay, release the recoil spring assembly. Right, that's this thing here. Got that. I'm not sure if these springs are retained or not. Yeah, actually, looks like they are. Good. So we don't have to worry about springs flying across the room, flying across the basement and getting lost in the jumble of garbage on the floor. Okay, recoil spring assembly is removed. Now we take out the barrel. Simple, straightforward, working pretty well so far. Next, talks about how to disassemble the magazine, and then back to assembling the gun. Well, the magazines are pretty filthy, but I'm just going to wipe down the followers just very briefly. Not going to bother disassembling the magazine. I think a little dry wiping is probably going to get those clean enough for now. We're only required to do this every 200 rounds, so not too concerned about the magazines. If they get so gummed up, then we'll disassemble them. So gummed up that they don't feed anymore, then obviously we'll have to disassemble and clean those a little bit better. But for now, I'm not so concerned about the magazines. We'll cross that bridge maybe in another couple of 100 rounds. These mags are in pretty good shape. There, that one looks pretty good. Give this one a little bit more attention. Yay. Starting to look nice now. But this, yeah, that slide definitely needs some help. So what does it say back on the care and maintenance page about the slide? Remove excess firing residue from the bore and chamber using a properly fitted brass brush dipped in a gun cleaning solvent. All right, got a little bit of the old gun slick left here. Some just about out of rem oil. Grab myself a properly fitted. It says 357, but that's probably pretty close. Just put a little bit of oil, a few drops of oil on that thing. And clean out the bore. The bore, the feed ramp, kind of the face of that thing there. Make sure all that gunk is loosened up pretty well. All right, let's clean out the chamber. Probably have to actually screw this on to the cleaning rod to put it down the bore. Yeah, seems to go pretty well. Get that there. Bore's looking pretty good right now, I think. I like that. Okay, done that with the brass brush. Dipped in the cleaning solvent. Finish the bore cleaning process by running a dry cotton cloth patch through the bore to remove remaining residue and solvent. You know what? I think what's better actually than running a cotton cloth patch is one of these mop heads. I like these really well. So I'm going to substitute a 35 caliber mop head for a cotton patch. In this case, yep, I believe that is tight enough as well. That feels right. Yeah, that's getting pretty filthy. We're getting some additional residue out of there now that we've loosened it up with the wire brush head. And that's looking pretty good. Get in there. Sometimes if it's really dirty, I'll take a slightly wider mop, actually. Like, I think I've got a 40 caliber head right here. Here's a 40, although this is not exactly the cleanest thing in the world, but let me just demonstrate this briefly. Take the 40 and run that just through the chamber, although it looks like the 40 is going to run right through the bore pretty well. Not sure about that, but you run the 40 caliber in there, get the chamber a little bit cleaner, because that's a little wider. I might even step up to a 45 or something here. See what I have on hand. Oh, that's a 35. What is this? This is gross. I'm not sticking this in my gun, but there's a 44. That's what I might do if it was really dirty. Not gonna stick that. In fact, this is ready to go in the laundry right here. But all right, next step: clean the exterior of the firearm, slide, and rails using a non-abrasive cleaning cloth. Remove dust and residue from small crevices using a small brush. Well, let's get in the crevices a little bit. Well, yeah, let's follow the instructions. Here, I think I have just a little bit of rem oil left. Before we do that, let's bust out just a touch of the Birchwood Casey gun scrubber. This is an old favorite of mine from way back in the shotgun days. And I am just going to apply, I don't know if you can see that here. Let me bring the camera angle down so you can see what I'm up to right here. I'm just going to touch it with a little Birchwood Casey. We are in kind of an enclosed space here, so I don't want to just hose that puppy down, or I will have a nasty headache. Birchwood Casey gun scrubber brain haze for a number of hours afterwards. In my experience, again, from cleaning long guns, you use a lot more. I think we're okay right now. But yeah, then I want to get in, there's the bolt face. I want to get in there with like a toothbrush. See if I've got any ram oil left. Yep, just enough. just enough of the rem oil left. Get that toothbrush wetted. Get that in there. And get the crevices. Not sure how deep to get into this. I did only put 100 rounds through it so far. Maybe we'll take it down a little further than this next time. But I think this is good for standard routine maintenance. Get in all those spots there. The rails especially. Rail mounting surfaces on the slide. Just kind of break that stuff up a little bit, because that's not going to come out of there very easily without a brush. And we'll do that for the rails as well, obviously. This is getting, I don't really want the spatters on there. Let's clean that. Just wipe down the frame just a bit. Then get our toothbrush in and get those rails good and clean. So this is just a little, just going to put a touch of oil in there. Make sure it's well lubricated. Get in there. Get that stuff. All the little nooks and crannies in there. Just drying out just a bit again. A little bit more oil. Get back here. And sometimes after a typical range session where I've run like a test, I've put, say, 25 rounds of ammunition to the gun, I won't even go this far. I'll just kind of run a bore mop through it and make sure that that there's no buildup beginning in the rifle threadings, in the rifling threads. But for a first-time breakdown and cleaning, I want to make sure that we get this gun in the best possible working order that we can get it. Because we did experience a failure to seat properly. The slide remained just slightly out of battery on round number 60 or 61 of the test, of the break-in test of 100 rounds. So I want to make sure that if it's a powder residue issue, and maybe we'll need, ultimately, it may come down to the strength of the springs, but if there's some powder residue that's interfering with the gun going into battery all the way, I want to make sure that whatever that issue is, if it can be addressed in this manner, that it is addressed. But still in the break-in period, I don't expect to experience that type of failure regularly. If I do, I may take a look at these springs and see if somebody offers a stronger spring kit. Because you don't want the gun out of battery in an actual defensive encounter. Now, I might just take just a hint of the birchwood casey again. Just a touch. Oops, missed. And put it in there. Yeah, that immediately brightens everything. Ooh, that's nice. Ooh, yeah. Yeah. That gets a bunch of residue off of there. All right. Obviously, we need to get that taken up, and I've already probably inhaled too much of it. Good thing this is my day off. I don't have to drive anywhere. Get that picked up. It will dry, obviously, but I don't want it to just automatically evaporate. Plus, kind of want to make sure and pick up what residue I can while it's still wet, if there's anything that the birchwood casey would leave behind as it evaporates, even if it's just a microscopic layer of residue. I want to pick up as much of that as I can pick up. Now, springs might be a different situation. Slide this out of the way, lay down a couple of paper towels, and these I'm just going to shoot with the birchwood casey, because it'll get in between those springs real nice. That should take care of any issues with a buildup of residue in the springs. And then we'll lube that just a bit. Maybe I've got just enough rem oil left in the can. Yeah, that's getting it just a little wet. You want to make sure that that spring is nice and lubricated, because that spring is suspect number one in the failure to go into battery. So make sure there's nothing interfering with the proper functioning of the spring. All right, and again, one failure to seat properly during the break-in period is to be expected. I'm not worried about it. I just want to do my due diligence and make sure to get this absolutely done right the first time. And then we'll get in there with the gun oil. Make sure all these parts are properly lubricated, polished up. Got the toothbrush out to break up the heavy deposits, but now we want to take off. We want to take up whatever's left over. And boy, does that look dirty to you guys? That looks dirty. I'm gonna try to bring in the brush again and scrub that a little bit. I think it's good. It's not doing any harm that way anyway. All right. And it says you want to wind up with lubricating the frame rails and the barrel lockup points. And that's obviously done easier with an aerosol can. But I think there's a little bit left. Just enough for this operation, and then I'll have to definitely replace my rem oil. So that's going to get in there. This we already got with the gun oil. It's pretty easy to lubricate these. So just going to do that over again. Make sure we have everything just barely moist. And we want to wipe it down. Cloth is not going to take up all of that lubricant, but we don't want lubricant gumming things up, drying or it won't dry really, but it'll form a collection point for powder residue and such. If we leave like ponds of it in there, that's not going to be good for the gun either. So then we're going to go over all those surfaces and dry up, soak up as much of that as we can, because it'll always leave some behind, and that's all you want. It's just a thin layer of that lubricant left behind. You don't want it dripping wet when you're done, because that could potentially interfere with the proper function of the firearm as well. Now, how is that bolt face? I guess that's supposed to look like that, but because we've had the birchwood casing on it, and we've had the toothbrush on it, so I guess the bolt face is supposed to look black. I didn't really notice when I first bought the gun if it did, but I don't think that's residue. I think that's just the factory color. Although that'll start to wear off, obviously, with use, because that's a high wear position in the firearm. It's going to have high volume, high traffic of brass casing impacting against that point during the regular operation of the firearm. Now, all right, this is almost dry enough. A few spots on the sides here, so make sure and get that good and lubricated. And good and dry afterwards, so there's just a film, a thin film of lubricant left on it. And you can even take, you know, your mop heads and go into these tight to reach spots. There you go. There we go. Get that nice and dry. Find a dry patch of a paper towel here. And now I've got, maybe I'll just bring in a towel entirely. I got a nice thin towel here, hand towel, to wipe down everything. So there's no puddles or drops or, you know, buildup of the gun lubricant. But we don't want to take it down too dry because it is supposed to be lubricated. But again, you can see the shininess on the rails there. There is plenty left behind to properly lubricate the moving parts, the surfaces on the gun that interface with each other and allow the proper sliding action of the slide. So I think we're getting ready to reassemble the gun and try that action a little bit. Looks good. This is looking good. Now, sometimes when I clean, I'm a little bit rough with my firearms, and sometimes when I clean them, pieces of the cloth or the paper will, or you know, paper towel will hang up, will hook on something, and it'll like tear, and I have to dig the paper out of those little crevices and stuff. This gun is actually unusually nice in that way. It doesn't seem to have a lot of sharp angles inside of it. It's like a really nice crown barrel, honestly. This just, the more I get to know this firearm, the more I feel like it is a genuinely well crafted piece. Let's find a dry mop head here and just shove it through there just to make sure that the bore doesn't have a lot of buildup in there. We don't really need a lot of lubricant in the bore because engaging with the rifling is what makes the bullet spin. You don't need any lubricant in there. Just make sure that's nice and dry. So okay, everything is nice and dry. Do want just a little bit of lube in here, because again, where that barrel connects up, that is one of the moving pieces. So yeah, there's a little bit of oil in there, a little bit of oil in there. That's good. That's what we want. All right, so clean enough as far as I'm concerned. You can tell that oil has gotten inside, you know, because it's sort of seeping out around the extractor arm a little bit. Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's going to be well lubricated. Everything on this gun should be functioning really, really well. You know, pick up the stuff that's leaking out, and when it's no longer leaking out, then you know there's not really any excess of lubricant left inside the gun at that point. But it will, when you spray it in there, it will leak back out to a certain degree. You just want to take that down to superficially dry, and then you know, give the mag release button a little push and see what comes out. Yeah, not much. There is not much excess lube inside of this firearm. And yeah, it's looking good. Okay, so following the directions again, we got the frame rails and the barrel lockup points properly cleaned and lubed. Rub the pistol with a lightly oiled cloth, and of course, the cloth gets oiled from the excess oil that it picks up. So I don't really need to. If I really wanted to lightly oil a cloth, I've got this, this lens cleaner cloth here, and that would hold a little oil on its surface, and I could go over everything and just coat everything with a little extra oil. I don't feel that that's desirable or under ordinary conditions because, like I said, the rails will retain quite naturally just a little bit of lubricant, and where they engage, the slots in the slide where the rails engage with them will retain a little bit of lubricant because it's hard for the cleaning cloth to even get down in there. You can kind of see that, how it stays shiny after you've been over it with the cleaning cloth. It's almost too much lubricant in there right now. But again, that's not a big deal. Grab that spring, wipe down the excess residue off of that spring, pop the barrel back in there, spring back in there. Now, before I get too far ahead of myself, let me make sure the direction that the spring goes. It should be fairly self-explanatory. It should only fit one way. Yeah, that was my guess. It only fits one way. But you can kind of see from the instructions which way the barrel and spring go. They only work one way anyway. That's back in place. Everything's looking nice and lubed. Just a thin film over it. And then we will insert the recoil spring assembly into the slide over the barrel, compressing the spring slightly to get it in position. Slide should be mounted on the frame and pulled fully to the rear, and then engage the slide latch using the flathead screwdriver. All right. So we'll put this back together. It says all the way to the rear. Huh? Does it want me to lock it? Slide should be mounted on the frame and pulled fully to the rear. Engage the slide catch. Okay, so that's the slide catch. Using a flathead screwdriver, rotate the takedown pin clockwise a quarter turn until the slot is positioned vertically. Release the slide by pulling down on the slide catch. Yeah, of course. All right. Rotate the screw back into position. Yep, listen to that click. That's a nice, satisfying sound. And yes, works. Sounds good. Sounds nice. Everything sounds right. Everything slides nicely. Not a lot of excess lube squeezing out along the slide edges. Feels good. Looks good. Sounds good. I think we're done here. What other steps does it say? With the magazine removed, you should cycle the slide several times to ensure that the barrel slide frame fit together properly. That is done. Wipe down my instructions here so that the solvents don't dissolve the paper, and it's a glossy manual. I don't think anything bad is really going to happen to it. But I have accidentally, to try to keep it in the camera frame, I've accidentally put it too close and gotten it covered with a little bit of backsplash from the aerosol cans of cleaning solvent. All right, so clean up this stuff, put away my little cleaning tools over here. Just give a quick wipe down of these magazines. Just a little bit of lube on them. These feel like pretty high quality magazines. I'm not too worried about corrosion or anything impacting these magazines, but I always like to just give them just a touch of oil, usually just by using the oil that's left on the cleaning cloths at the end of the process. They really don't need a lot of lubrication. Make sure they're nice and dry to the touch. I don't want to get any lube inside the magazines or any solvent inside the magazines where it could potentially, well, it might leak into the to the to the ammunition just a little bit and cause havoc with the ignition process. So we'll get that done. Get everything wiped down, superficially dry. Not any reservoirs or ponding of the lubricant that might work its way into the ammunition, because when you're keeping a firearm loaded, as you do for personal protection, home defense, or concealed carry, you don't want solvent getting inside of your ammo. Make sure nothing like that is happening. And again, this gun feels absolutely quality. There's nothing bad happening as I'm drying this down. It's a really well constructed pistol. Oh, there. I finally got it to hang up on some little sharp edge and pull a little piece out of that cloth, but it disentangled pretty easily. It didn't rip off anything in there. Looks good. Okay, so the gun is clean and lubricated. See, you can tell it's got lube inside of it because a little bit seeps out when you run the slide. Sounds perfect. Just a tiny bit of lube comes out. Yeah, this is looking good. This is how I like to see them. This is how I like to have them at the end of the cleaning process. Not, there's just a little bit on the guide rod. I'll lock that open again. Get at that guide rod a little bit. I don't necessarily want the guide rod to be wet. Just very, very thinly lubricated. Looks good. Get in there and dry that guide rod down just a little bit. Quite a bit of lube, you know, in those springs still. Don't want a lot of it. I can see there's just a hint of a shine on that guide rod. Now that has a more appropriate amount of lubricant left on it. That is how I want the pistol to look when I'm done. And that is how it looks. Man. Really, really nice. So, now I am ready to load the magazines again. Make that feed ramp all nice and shiny. Load the magazines again. Chamber is nice and dry. So we use the oversized mop head to dry mop that chamber. So there's not a lot of solvent or anything in the chamber that might affect the ammunition. If we want to carry with a loaded chamber, reinsert the magazines. Make sure the slide lock is working. Looks good. This gun is ready to go back in the holster. To be loaded up, go back in the holster, go back to the range, whatever else we want to do with it. All right. That is the disassembly and cleaning of the Taurus GX4. Proper care and maintenance, demonstrated by Dave from DDR. Thanks for your time, folks. Hope this is a helpful and instructive video for you, and have a great week.